You know that the first person outside of me to get a look at geometric unity was Jeffrey Epstein. How did he know I was working on this? I don't know.
So your ideas that formed geometric unity was something that his eyes has seen?
I was pushed to talk to Jeffrey Epstein as one of the only people who could help me. No, listen to this.
How does this connect?
Okay, well, first of all, my old synagogue, my old shul, was the conservative minyan at Harvard Hillel. And I believe it's called Rosofsky Hall, after Henry Rosofsky in the economics department, who was a Japan scholar, if I'm correct. And he became provost or dean of Harvard. I believe that was built with Jeffrey Epstein's money. And I wondered, in part, whether the Jewish students at Harvard all sort of passed through a bottleneck of Harvard Hillel. So that was something I found very curious, but I don't know much about it. I also found that Jeffrey Epstein hanging around scientists, I don't think that either you or Joe got me correct in your last interchange.
For the record, for people who haven't listened to the Joe Rogan program, Joe has claimed that Eric Weinstein was the only person who has gotten laid.
Paid.
Paid.
And you said you also got paid as a young man, right?
I believe the word was laid, but allegedly.
My hearing isn't so good at age 55.
Yeah.
All right. Leaving that aside.
Yes.
What was Jeffrey Epstein doing hanging around all of these scientists? I don't think that was the same program that was about compromising political leaders and business people and entertainment figures. I think these are two different programs that were being run through one individual. And Joe seemed to think that I didn't think he was smooth. I thought he was glib. I think what Joe is really trying to get at is that I found his mysticism meretricious. He had an ability to deflect every conversation that might go towards revealing that he didn't know what he was talking about. Every time you started to get close to something where the rubber hit the road, the rubber wouldn't hit the road.
And yet, can you help me untangle the fact that you thought deeply about the physics of the nature of our universe, and Jeffrey Epstein was interested?
How did he know? I wasn't really talking about this stuff until, even my close friends didn't really know what I was up to.
And yet you're saying he did not have sufficient brilliance to understand when the rubber hit the road. So why did he have sufficient interest and curiosity?
I'll tell you what I thought. I had been waiting to find out, does my government even know I exist?
Do you have an answer to that question?
I have, a couple times the government has reached out to me. In general, there is zero interest in me, like less than zero interest. I find that fascinating.
As far as you know, right? I mean,
well, that's what I'm trying to say. The question about not being able to see through a half-silvered mirror, you don't know what's going on behind the half-silvered mirror. To you, it's all you see is your reflection.
But your intuition still holds. Like, this is where I've mentioned that this is where I'll say naive, dumb things, but I still hold on to this intuition that I'm not confident in this, but I'm lean towards that direction, that Jeffrey Epstein is the source of evil, not something that's underlying him.
You have a bias. It's different than mine. Our Bayesian priors are tutored by different life experiences.
Yeah.
If I was mostly concerned, like Sam Harris is concerned, that people fill their heads with nonsense, I would have a very strong sense that people need order in the world, that they take mysterious situations, they build entire castles in the air, and then they go move in if they really get crazy. The old saying is that neurotics build castles in the air and psychotics move in. Coming from a progressive family, we had a different experience. It's really weird when the government is actually out to get you, when they actually send a spy, when they actually engage in disinformation campaigns, when they smear you. And if you've ever had that brought to bear on your family, you have a Howard Zinn sort of understanding of the country, which is different than having wow, do people believe crazy stuff because they watch too much TV? And both of these things have some merit to them, but it's a question of regulated expression. When do you want to express more Sam Harris, and when do you want to express more Howard Zinn?
And you can express both, correct? One human being can express both?
Sure, but there's a trade-off between them. In other words, most people, like the Michael Shermers of the world, are going to tilt very strongly to extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So you're going to have that kind of energy. And then somebody else is going to say, how many times do I have to get hit on, how many times do I have to hammer my own thumb before I realize that there's a problem? So, my feeling about this is, yes, people see patterns in clouds. They see faces and scripture and all sorts of things, and it's just random cloud patterns. Yeah. And it's also the case that there's tremendous pressure not to see conspiracies when conspiracies are relatively more common than the people who shout conspiracy theory will claim. So both of these things are true. And you have to ask, when do you express your inner Zinn and when your inner Harris? And those are different.
One fundamental difference in you and I, biases aside, is you've actually met Jeffrey Epstein. And I'm listening to like reverberations years later of stories and narratives through the story.
Luckily, I only met him once. And I think I had one or perhaps two phone conversations with him other than the one meeting.
You can learn a lot in just a few words, right, from a human being.
Well, that's true. But I think that the bigger issue was I saw something that I don't hear much remarked upon, which is Jeffrey Epstein is all that there is. In other words, there's the National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health, Howard Hughes. There's all this stuff that kind of has the same feel to it, a little bit of variation and difference. Department of Energy. If you fall outside of that, there's just Jeffrey Epstein. That's what you're told.
Yes.
That's not quite true. There's Kavli. Maybe Jim Simons is now in the game. Peter Thiel has done some stuff. You had Yuri Milner and Mark Zuckerberg try. So there is other money running around. Templeton. But very strongly, there was a belief that if you're doing something really innovative and the system can't fund it because we've become pussies, Jeffrey Epstein's your guy.
So there's like this funnel that you're supposed to go through.
That's right. And the idea is that you get called to the great man's house and, the sort of lubricious version of Ralph Lauren, takes you in and asks you bizarre questions. And maybe he has an island, maybe he has a plane. And, when you're starved, somebody showing you a feast, or when you're dehydrated and at death's door and somebody says, oh, I have a well. That's what it is. And so the thought is, wow, can somebody get some effing money into the science system so that we don't have super creeps trying to learn all of our secrets ahead of time? WTF? What is your problem with transparency and taxpayer dollars? Just all of you wouldn't have a country. You'd be speaking German.
So essentially, you believe that human beings would not be able to, when the money is lacking in the system, like in research.
We produce public goods. You and I are meant to produce public goods. Now, I sell athletic greens, and I sell Theragun, and I sell Unagi scooters, and Chili Pad. I gotta be honest, I love these products, but I didn't get into this game for the purpose of selling. I'm trying to figure out, how do you have an FU lifestyle?